Welcome back to the Underdog Legacy podcast. I am pumped that you're here. Let me ask you a question. If someone asked you, what would you like to accomplish before you die? Remove any restrictions, budget, location, time frame. Like, what would you like to accomplish before you die? What would you say? I'll, I'll, I'll let you think about it for a minute. I feel like no one here would say, I'd like to get through all of Netflix. I would like to see the end of the internet and I would be happy. If I could see the end of the internet before I die, I've seen everything on there, I'm good to go. Or if I could just really crush NBA 2024, I'd be good to go. Like, those are not I don't know about the end of the internet because there's some whack stuff on the internet. Um, but like playing video games, watching movies, or enjoying entertainment, like there's nothing inherently wrong with having a pastime, right? But I would be willing to bet that most people, when you're asked if you could accomplish one thing before you die, like take all the restrictions off, they're looking at massive dreams. They're talking about solving world hunger or creating world peace or finding homes for all the orphans. Like, I feel like the vast majority of people dream big in their own minds. But then when it comes to actually living out the dream, that's where we start to really kind of drop the ball, isn't it? That's where it really starts to get tough when the rubber meets the road. Things become difficult. There's this cool story I just heard. Everybody knows who Gandhi is, right? He had hundreds of millions of followers before there was even social media. Can you imagine what he could accomplish today, right? I say that a little tongue in cheek, but this guy revolutionized a whole bunch of stuff and absolutely influenced millions and millions and millions of lives. There's a story about this group of leaders, religious leaders, had the opportunity to meet him and they were talking to him about his purpose and what he was accomplishing in the world. And one of them brought him a piece of paper and they're like, can you write down a message so that we can take it back to those that were not able to join us today, and we can share this message with them. And Gandhi didn't write anything down. He just said simply, "My life is my message." And I know that that's not necessarily strictly a Gandhi quote. I know that this quote has been made throughout history, across time. Like it's been made multiple times, but that story caught my attention. Probably because of the season that I'm in, where I'm determining my purpose. I'm defining my goals and I'm diving into what I'm looking to build. I think, like I said, all of us have a purpose. All of us have something that we're looking to accomplish. But when it comes down to the actual execution of our internal and translating that into external is where we drop the ball. That's where the breakdown begins to occur. But my question to you today is what would your life look like if you lived like the quote, "My life is my message," were true? Like, what are the things that you hold dear, at least mentally, internally? What are the things that you want to be known for? I've got a photo over here that's got my core character traits that I like to live a life that everybody understands who I am based on just observing me. And it's got disciplined, devoted to excellence, courageous, authentic, and adventurous, I think are the main ones. It's actually covered up by a bunch of clutter on my desk right now. But I want my life to like resonate with those things, resonate with those character traits. There's a book I'm listening to, audiobook I would highly recommend. It's called Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life by Bob Proctor. And in this book, he talks a lot about how we go through life allowing the external to influence the internal. We allow external forces to control us internally. Something bad happens at work, it controls us internally, and it changes our mood and our mindset and our attitudes, right? We hit traffic, it changes us. We see a sad news story or an aggravating news story or a political news story, it changes us, right? Um, but like, we're living a life that's reactionary all the time. We're fight or flight all the time when we do this. And it's no wonder that it's so easy for us to kind of slip into ruts of the status quo and mediocrity and feeling so worn out and beat down and exhausted that we're not moving forward into any sort of purpose or into living a life that actually resembles the messages that we would like to share with those around us. Instead, we have to flip the switch and actually begin living lives that start allowing the internal state to influence the external. How do I feel about myself? How do I feel about my abilities and my capacity to accomplish work? That's what's going to determine how I feel. How do I feel about the way I live my life? Because that's what's going to determine how I allow others' opinions of me to impact me. How do I feel about doing this thing or that thing? Because that's going to determine how I move forward and what I accomplish in my day, whether that's working for yourself as an entrepreneur or that's working for an employer that you go in and you're doing your time in a 9 to 5 and you're putting in your effort and your work. You can control the external and you can allow the external to kind of slip off your back like water off a duck's back if your internal mechanisms and your internal programming is locked in. And that's where we struggle so much. We live lives that we allow the external factors to determine how we feel rather than doing internal work and then projecting that into our environment. You've probably seen this with people where they walk into a room and immediately the room feels different. Um, there is my former pastor. Um, he's now the bishop, and he's in his 70s and still like walks every day. He was a runner. He's the most disciplined person that I know. And this guy, Gary Tracy is his name. When he walks into a room or he walks up to you and shakes your hand, you immediately feel peace. You immediately feel a sense of love. You immediately feel something inside you kind of stirring and rising to a new level because of the way that he looks at you and the way that he interacts with you elevates your ability to accomplish work and to do things because of the way he approaches life through his faith, through his discipline, through his intellect, and his ability to control himself and his controlling himself and influences and impacts his environment. It's an incredible experience being able to watch someone like that. You probably have examples in your own life where they walk into a place and the energy changes. They walk into a situation and the situation changes and becomes better. Maybe you see it where it's the other way and it becomes worse. Whatever it is, you know what I'm talking about. This ability to change the environment based on the way that you're approaching life. And so frequently, so often, if you're not careful, the default is that we just let life happen to us rather than us happening to life. There was a quote I read in a book, Erwin McManus, Man After God's Own Heart, or not Man After God's Own Heart, Wild at Heart is the name of it. It's about Christianity and masculinity. And there's a line in that book that changed my life where he says, let the world feel the weight of who you are and let them deal with it. And that's a beautiful encapsulation of this concept. Like we have to determine who we are, what our message is, what our purpose is, and how we're attacking that, everything else doesn't matter. This becomes difficult because we're surrounded by a world where we're getting inundated with messages every single second of every single day. Influencers on social media, talk radio hosts, news anchors, YouTube shows, podcasts. Sorry. Sorry for adding to that noise, but not sorry. It is what it is. You're here now. You've listened this far. Hopefully, hopefully you feel like it's worth your time. But we're getting inundated with messages all of the time. It's easy to see people like I just saw something where, these influencers in Los Angeles can rent a house for an hour. They can rent a Lamborghini or a Ferrari for an hour. They can rent a fashion shoot show wardrobe for an hour. And then they go into these places and they can rent, like in a warehouse, there's a room that looks like the inside of an airplane. So it looks like they're actually getting on a plane flying around the world. Like there are so many people teaching how to do things, and no one actually, or very few, actually living it out day by day by day. And the reason why the day by day living isn't amplified more than it is because, frankly, when you're in the grind, when you're in the hustle, if you're working, it's boring. There's not a massive level of dopamine hitting and serotonin flying through your veins because doing the work is not as glamorous or as sexy as it is to talk about doing the work. And that's just the frank reality of it. You have to decide when you find out if you did your homework from the last podcast and you dove a little bit deeper into your purpose and then you started kind of putting together what's my next step. You're going to find out that the the interim is not glamorous, but it's a beautiful thing if you can embrace it and take steps knowing that, man, that purpose that I've dreamed about since I was a little kid, that thing that lights me up and makes me so excited is just over the horizon. All I have to do is keep making myself ready for it step by step, doing the next step. Got it done. What's the next step? Get it done. That's what I want my life to be defined by. I want my life to be defined by my life is my message. And that's what this podcast, that's what prompted me to start this podcast. Because if nothing else, I hope it's something that my daughter can come back to when I'm a 75-year-old man and I've accomplished the things that I know I'm going to accomplish in my life. And she can be like, this is how my dad did it. It's so cool to hear these stories now. Um, this is why I'm doing it. And if I'm able to inspire just a single person along the way to accomplish their purpose and to heed their calling and to follow the course that has been set before them for them to fulfill, they and only they can fulfill it. That will make all of the work, all of the expense, all of the effort that I'm putting into capturing this season of my life worth it. So this week, last week you had some homework. This week you've got some homework. I want you to think about, what message is my life preaching? What message is my life preaching? Am I living a life that I respect? Do I respect myself for the life that I'm living? And I can tell you right now, the vast majority of my life, I have not respected myself. And it's shown in my health, it's shown in my relationships, it's shown in my attitude. There have been seasons of my life where things have gone incredibly dark. And maybe I'm sure at some point I will open up about some of the struggles that I've had. But there have been seasons where I've not respected myself in the least, because the message that my life was preaching was not the message that I know I was called to engage in. I know I was not called to live that way. Now I feel like I'm beginning to step into the calling that my life has been granted. given, the purpose that I have, the mission that has been set before me. So think about what message your life is preaching. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it figured out. You just need to begin aligning your life with your message. So this week, the challenge: align your life this week with the message and the habits. Close the gap between the message that you want your life to preach and the habits that you're engaging in, whatever that looks like. You probably, if you've been listening to this point and you heard that line, you probably already have an idea of what it is that you should immediately change. Do that thing with everything that you've got. Do that thing this week. Check in with me. Let me know how it's going. I would love to. It would be incredibly encouraging. Just frankly, transparently, it would be incredibly encouraging to hear from you how you're doing this week and what you're changing this week, what you determined from the last little homework lesson or session or assignment that I gave you on that last podcast. I would love to hear from you. Here's some feedback, because my prayer is that this podcast helps you become who God has created you to be and accomplish the work that you are created to accomplish, because there is no one else that can do what you are meant to do. Until next time, keep on keeping on. I believe in you. You've got this. We're going to crush this thing together. I'm excited to be back with you again in just a few short days.